Hi and welcome to Low Carb Ancestral Living with Pim Jansson. Today's guest is a very interesting person. He has declared war on porn and over-sexualization of our society to stop the feminization of men and give us women what we ultimately are looking for. More intimate relationships, more motivated partners, and partners that last longer than 2 minutes. Just joking. Welcome to the show, Nakula Das.
Thank you very much. And it is one of the things I can do. You know, it is a challenge, right? The 2-minute man is difficult sometimes to connect with. And so, it's something that we definitely help guys. But anyways, I'm looking forward to our conversation and, diving into the topic. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. To be honest, I mean, it's such a huge topic. I don't really know where to start. So can I just ask you, like, how did you get into this and why did you get into all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Thank you. The why is because I have been exploring personal development and spiritual processes from all around the world for about a decade now, because it's my passion. It's what I love to do. I'm driven by the question why on a personal level. Why do we do this? Why do people do this? Why do we accept this and not that? I just like the question, and not necessarily because I'm trying to draw a conclusion, but more from a space of exploration and just seeing what it is that life has to offer. So for me, this topic is quite an adventure. And in my own spiritual journey, you know, it was very easy correlation. All traditions that I've been able to read, whether it's a guy who's into like Stoic philosophy, or someone who's into the Vedas, or a Christian who's reading the Bible, and all the many different traditions, there's some basic principles that many of them share and most of them share. And one is that you become what you think about. That ultimately a person who can control their own mind has a certain amount of sovereignty over their life. They're able to achieve things above the status quo. And this is actually available for all of mankind. Everybody has the ability to tap into some level of capacity that seems to take their whole life to a next level. And not just from a material way, but from also a way of emotional understanding, mental capacity, cognitive function, intelligence, and ultimately spiritual realizations, recognizing that they're much more than the body and the mind. And this is the journey I've been down, is trying to figure out, well, how to do this. And all of these schools of thought recognize that discipline and focus, especially for a man, is the path towards a better life. It's as simple as that. If you're willing to become a little bit more focused and a little bit more disciplined and gradually make that your goal of life and your lifestyle, then ultimately your life is going to continue to get better. And as a man, you will fulfill your basic dharma or basic nature, which is to be a great provider and great protector. And when a man ultimately fulfills this, he's also able to create success, in greater and greater capacities that's towards his talents. And the ultimate practice of self-control and discipline for a man is to control his sexual urges and energy, because ultimately he's run by it. And that's not a negative thing, and it's not a toxic thing. It's a natural thing. To understand our own sexuality and our own sexual urges and energy is something that should be embraced and looked at once upon as a sacred study, something to really understand, and something that should be bringing tremendous amounts of pleasure, connection, and intimacy into our life. But right now, millions and millions of men across the world from all walks of life, it doesn't matter, this is something that's transcendent. This is a human problem right now, is that millions and millions of men have been caught in the world of pornography, are constantly ejaculating, and therefore depleting their very vital life force and energy. And unfortunately, big pharma and mainstream media and mainstream culture is is essentially putting propaganda out of the opposite message. So it creates a very difficult situation to have an intelligent conversation of why someone should practice this ancient practice called semen retention. This has been around for thousands and thousands of years. This is not something new. I didn't make this up. This is something that's been tried, tested, and proven. There's modern papers and studies to show both the damages of pornography as well as the benefits of a man practicing semen retention and controlling his ejaculation. Doesn't mean a man has to become a monk. So I learned of this. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, was like, he's got a whole chapter dedicated to the secrets of sex transmutation. As I started studying the yogic philosophies and the ancient traditions of the Taoists, then they also talked about the importance of retention and transmuting and controlling this energy. The Orthodox Jewish tradition has a regulation of Friday night. It's Friday night is the time to express your passion and be intimate with your partner and express your sexual energy. But no masturbation or anything throughout the week, which gave their people tremendous amounts of focus, intelligent wealth. There were so many benefits to societies who understood that regulating and understanding sexual energy and how it works and sexuality was an important piece of life. And this is an ancient topic that I'm looking to revive and make mainstream once again.
So when we look back at those ancient practices, as you call them, was this also used maybe as a way of controlling men, or was it just for the benefit of everyone? How was it used? You mentioned a few there, but just wondering if they used it as a negative thing as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, like anything, there is a positive and a negative. Let's say money as an example. Money in itself can be used for very good things, and money can also be used for negative things. So similarly, sexual energy and these practices, they can be used, and so sex energy will make you more of who you are. So if you have tendencies of anger, for example, and you raise your sexual energy, you practice semen retention, you'll probably feel more angry and more frustrated and more agitated. But the positive is that under guidance and under the techniques that I teach, which is a series of meditations, controlling the mind, learning to move the mind within the body, to feel into our own bodies, to connect with our bodies and let our bodies be our teachers. So that means we have to have some level of conscious development where we can separate our awareness and our body. And that's the first thing I teach guys to do, is say, look, this is your body, this is your mind, but notice you can witness your own body and mind. So let's learn to live from that place of the witness. And now let's let our bodies teach us. Oh, my body is very lusty, right? My body always desires some sensual pleasure. But I also notice that when I control my sensual pleasures and I focus my energy into things that of our importance, maybe my finances need improvement, maybe my health needs to be looked at, maybe my relationship. So many relationships right now are suffering. Communication is bad. Disconnection in the home is the biggest pandemic we have. Disconnection in the home. People in their own four walls feeling lonely and disconnected because they don't know how to get along. And much of it can be solved by understanding our natural dispositions as feminine and masculine beings. And so these ancient practices can be used for both good and bad. It could be used to control and manipulate. It could be used to influence in a positive way or a negative way. And just like anything else in the world, it's our consciousness and what we bring to it. And that's the thing. Right now, these techniques are being used, but in a negative way. Porn companies understand what they're doing. They know how addictive this is. They know that they are manipulating the basic energy of men. You deplete a man from his basic motivation, which is sex, and you give him a false way of attaining that same motivation, which is what porn is, you damage his dopamine receptors, you throw his hormones off, he becomes less masculine because he's producing less testosterone. A man who ejaculates every single day, especially to masturbation and porn, is ultimately depleting himself. He's releasing prolactin in the system every day, which is stifling his testosterone growth. This is making us as men less masculine. And if we have a less masculine body, like I used to carry a lot more body fat, and it's something I'm still improving on. But here's the deal. If you carry a lot of body fat as a man, you are stifling your own testosterone growth. If you're ejaculating every single day, you're stifling your own testosterone growth because your body's releasing prolactin, which stifles you. You're also using a tremendous amounts of resources. It takes 40 to 60 ounces of blood, according to Ayurveda, to create one drop of semen, meaning there's a tremendous amounts of energy going into creating your semen, because from a basic biological survival perspective, that is the thing that's going to give your sperm, and in the right environment of the womb, is going to give the nutrients and the starting of life. It's literally the energy that begins life. So now imagine if you take what the yogis figured out and the Taoists figured out and the mystics and the occultists and all these things, both of positive and negative, right? Both positive and negative figured this out. That, we can enlighten societies, we can empower men, we can have very strong, masculine, healthy men who provide and protect, and they're the ones who build societies and build structures and all kinds of great things. And when we have a strong masculine energy that's healthy, we also naturally get a strong feminine that's healthy. And vice versa. They play off of each other, of course. Right? So you get a strong, healthy feminine that can help men release masculine. Same thing. I work with men, so I talk about it from like that perspective. And so these practices can be used for both good and bad.
Okay, so you mentioned porn there, but I know that you have kind of lumped it in with the over-sexualization of our society. So is there a difference in kind of the degree to which they are a problem, or can we lump them together and just say that they cause the same problem in the population? Or what's your take on that? Yeah.
There's a degree. I'd say there's a degree to it, right? Like, again, sex is part of life, so it's not about shying away from sex. It's about understanding it. It's about diving deeper into it to also control it, understand it, and essentially even learn to start to transcend it, where it doesn't become such a hanker in your life. It's part of life, but it's in its proper place, after your responsibilities have been taken care of, after your, you got your finances together, you got your health is good in order and such. But if those things aren't together, if your basic necessities aren't together and you're spending all day watching porn, or watching Instagram girls, or flipping through social media, or playing too much video games or Netflix, like take any one of the vices, but porn is the epitome of it, because porn plays on your basic motivator, which is sex. So here's the deal. There is a degree that porn is absolutely the most detrimental. Now, there's a certain percentage of guys who are going to get addicted to porn. We're already seeing this, and this is growing, especially the younger generations. This is going to be a massive issue, because the younger generations are having so much access to porn at such a young age that their minds are being developed with porn-like images as their image of sex. Porn essentially is sex education now, which is a horrible way to depict sex in the world. It's a very unhealthy, and it's fake. So porn is the worst. And the more that we can get a good education out about what porn does, then people can make a choice. I always believe in free will and choice. And I believe that people can make a choice of what they want to do. But we also know, like when the folks advocated for cigarettes See, what did the cigarettes companies do back in the day is they embedded cigarettes into the culture. Cigarettes were all the celebrities were smoking, so the younger generation looked up to them and said, they mimicked it. And the society at large mimics, there's certain influencers and such. So similarly, what's happened is look at the music that we're propping up. Wet Ass Pussy was a Grammy award-winning song. So we could see that the society is propping up this over-sexualization, this culture of over-sexualization. This is going to weaken society. This has been shown in history as a tactic and a use of how to weaken and control societies, because when our sex energy is manipulated and overstimulated, not expressed in a healthy, natural way, it makes us more and more lusty. It makes us more and more addicted. And that's what porn does. That's shown. The brain science has shown that porn manipulates the prefrontal cortex, the dopamine receptors, your hormones. Constant porn use actually has been shown to reduce gray matter in the brain. The decrease in the prefrontal cortex, that aspect is the part of the brain of good judgment, of long-term decision making. So essentially, porn starts to make you more and more addicted to everything, because when you can't watch porn, you're going to feel depressed. And when you feel depressed, you're going to reach for more junk food, or you're going to play more video games, and you're going to neglect the most important things, which is your health and your family and your responsibilities. And that's what's going to make you fulfilled as a man. That's what it means to be a man, and that's what we're missing. Nobody's teaching men how to be men, and we're throwing everybody into the same category, and that is detrimental. This whole woke culture is detrimental. It's an ideology that has no basis in reality.
Okay, now I have a few questions, so I'm going to try to ask them one by one. So first of all,
sure.
How much of this is actually down to culture? Because if you're looking at, I was going to say ancient tribes, but we actually have some tribes still that exist today. Often the women, they might not be wearing any clothes on their upper bodies, etc. And that is completely natural. And they're all grown up that way. And I imagine that they don't really see this as a sexual thing. But at the same time, obviously, sex requires no clothes. So is this kind of a sexual trigger for these men? Or is it like, does this affect them at all in the same way as it would affect someone who's grown up in a society like ours? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, you can see in those... you can see when you observe those societies, right? And I've never been able to personally do it, so I'm speaking about someone who watches, like, something like, let's say, National Geographic, and they show a society who's still living, maybe, in the forest, and they're, and people are naked. This is, you can see that they're not agitated. They haven't sexualized themselves. So sex is a part of their life, but it is not part of their culture, right? It's, and so you can see, though, when you now look at our culture, where on the billboards and the music and everything is done up more and more. The social media, I just learned of this, that social media platforms are starting to alter our pictures a little bit to make us look a little bit better. So in our culture, everything is made to be this enhancement, and you could see it has a sexual undertone because sex is attractive. That's why I keep repeating this. It's our most basic motivator. Like, the reason I'm hammering that point is we have to all understand that this energy, these urges, and sex develops our psychology. There's our psychology and our sex. And the way we perceive sex highly affect each other. They're highly interlinked. And so you could see in these societies, they haven't over-sexualized. Now, you could see their sex has been expressed in many ways. There's polygamy. There's people who are living in marriages. There's people that are gay or straight, or you can see that sex is being expressed in many, many different ways. But the one thing that rather doesn't matter, any of that stuff doesn't matter, is that if it's not expressed in a natural way, then it's an unnatural way of it. Like anything that's unnatural or is not good for you ultimately. And this is what our society is disconnected from right now. This is something the ancient societies were connected with. They lived with nature. They lived amongst nature. They lived in harmony with nature, where we overall are very disconnected in our society with nature. Something myself I came to realize in my personal and spiritual development and seeking and passion for learning about life is like, wow, I really don't know anything about nature and how it works. So I wanted to learn. And the more you get connected with nature, then naturally you also become more and more attracted to natural expressions of things. So sex is there, but sex has its place. It's a natural expression. Porn is not a natural expression of sex. Right? It's just not. And and it has great detriment to our society. Anyways, I went on a rant. I tend to do that. You have to reel me in.
It's okay to rant here. So you mentioned that porn can alter our hormones. So how does it do this, and what effect does that actually have on men in general?
Yeah, so great question. When you're watching porn, you're obviously ejaculating a lot. Most men don't watch porn and not masturbate or ejaculate. So when somebody so first of all, let's talk about the porn itself. Porn heightens your dopamine, meaning it gives you tremendous amounts of dopamine. Up to 200% dopamine increase has been reported in men who are watching porn. This is an unnatural amount of dopamine. And every time the angle changes, or it's a different woman or a different scene, more dopamine is released. And this is why slowly over time, men tend to get into more hardcore porn, right? Maybe it starts off with a very sensual scene, right? And then, quickly a year later, you're into some stuff that, like, guys sometimes come to me when they're working with me and, I'm retraining guys. And they're like, man, I'm watching stuff I don't even like, I morally have a problem with. I would never want to even do it, but I'm watching it. And that's because they're looking for a higher and higher type of dopamine hit, that, feel good substance. It's like a quick high they're going for. So what happens is when you're watching porn, dopamine is unreleased on unnatural levels. This damages the dopamine receptors, and the receptors compensate by shutting off. Don't do this to me anymore. So now what happens is when somebody's not watching porn, they feel the low. They don't feel as good. Maybe they have anxiety. Maybe they're depressed. Maybe they're lazy. They're unmotivated. So they start to look for other things, chips, video games, whatever it is, to fill that dopamine hit. And also, same thing, or they start watching more and more porn, ejaculating more and more. So this is the first way it's throwing you off. Now, here comes the portion of excessive ejaculation, is that when a man ejaculates, he releases prolactin into the system. Prolactin stifles testosterone growth because testosterone is what makes men men. So essentially a low testosterone society, which, side note, Big Pharma right now is prescribing more testosterone pills right now than ever before. They're also, Men's Health magazine is also just released an article. This is how crooked the mainstream is and how detrimental their propaganda is. Just released an article saying that men should ejaculate 21 times a month to avoid prostate cancer. Like, prostate cancer is not a guaranteed thing. Like, I like, again, the pharmaceutical. Here's what, also, little side note, what everyone should understand is that the largest lobbying groups, the largest lobbyists in the world, are big pharma. Nobody is talking to your politicians more than big pharma. By far, like almost double. In the United States, the largest group is the pharmaceutical industry, which doubles the amount of spending of the energy industry. This is how much big pharma is running the world right now. They're pumping out this information to weaken men, to weaken us, and to get us hooked. And because it's being done at such a massive level, people don't believe it. They're like, no, that can't be true. But it is true, because all you have to do is unplug a little bit and get connect. Don't take my word for it. Just give it a shot. Take 30 days and disconnect from the news and spend more time in nature. And I promise you, you're going to start feeling way better about life and your future and what's available in this world. We're trapped in this false narrative that we are inherently unhealthy and we need this big industry to save us. The good measurement of a great healthcare system is it should be decreasing, not increasing. Anyways, that's my little tangent on big pharma. So people know, because you should know like how much you're actually being marketed to and trained to rely on this instead of relying back on nature and living a healthy lifestyle. Healthcare isn't big pharma. That's a sign of unhealthiness. When our medical system is growing across the world, when we need more and more pharmaceuticals, that's not a sign of health. That's a sign of unhealthiness. The sign of health is that the medical system should be decreasing. That's the sign of good health. Our mental health needs are increasing instead of decreasing. That means we're going the wrong way. So we have to ask, what is the cause of this? And I'm presenting that it's a cultural shift that needs to happen. And one of the major parts of that cultural shift is in the way we express sex. That sex needs to be understood, mastered. People should be having great sex. Do you know that it takes the average? We started the conversation off like kind of joking about the 2-minute man. And I don't mean to make light, because many men are actually suffering this. I work with many men who are suffering from erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, or being a quick shooter. The average man is lasting underneath 5 minutes after penetration, when it takes the average woman 20 minutes or more to get into a state where she can reach orgasm. Why this is so important for our overall health as a society is that when we have disconnection in the bedroom, then we have disconnection right at the family core and unit. If a man and a woman, or if a partnership, it doesn't matter, gay, straight, that doesn't matter here. What matters is that if you feel like you can't be intimate with someone, or you're so trained where you can't be intimate and vulnerable with the person that you're spending the most time with, if you don't know how to connect, then what kind of life and quality of life are you going to experience? We should be spending the most time at home. Simple living. It's about getting back to family. It's getting back to connection. That's the importance of understanding sex. It's not just, can I have better sex? Yes, but it's not, better sex isn't porn sex. Better sex is a very deep connection. It's about romance, it's about, and that's something I've had to learn and continue to learn. Believe me, I'm no suave, like Rico Suave type. These are things that unfortunately we're not taught. So we have to learn these things. We have to be like, this is how I connect with my partner more. And so, so in these practices and in this lifestyle, when we're over sexualizing everything, all of this starts to crumble. And when the family core crumbles, you have real problems in society, big problems.
Right. So
did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think you did. I think you mentioned it amongst other things. So if porn literally leads to low testosterone levels, let's say if someone had sex with their partner every day, at least once every day, would that have the same detrimental effect to the testosterone levels, or is there a difference in, what is happening when you're connecting with?
Yeah, there is actually a difference. Yeah, there is a difference because our hormones react differently. It's a natural expression of sex. So when two people come together in a loving spirit, even the spirit or the mood you're in when you're having sex affects the type of quality of sex and therefore the way you respond to it. A lot of men will share with me, I'm not satisfied after sex. I'm more frustrated than before. And I'm like, one, it's because you're approaching sex from a space of frustration. You're looking at sex as a stress relief instead of a way to be intimate with your partner. So your partner is not a place to empty your stress. You know what I mean? But or to just basically masturbate to. You're basically a lot of what's good sex is not is much more than just physical. But when we approach it solely for a physical pleasure, then we look at our partner often unconsciously as just a masturbation tool. So the first thing is that when we change the quality of the way we approach it, we now approach sex in a way of, how do I please my partner? Not how do I get off, but how do I bring my partner pleasure? Do I know my partner's body? Do I know my partner's psychology, in which I know how to enter her not just physically, but mentally and consciously? Can I connect with her energy? Can I know her deeper, right? Can we exchange ourselves in such an intimate and loving way, which takes up tremendous amounts of vulnerability and intimacy and connection, but it creates such deep connection between partners, because when we have sex with someone, we create a connection with them. So when we create such a love, if you're entering your partner in a space of frustration, and you're not entering in a place, like as a man, entering the bedroom in a place of self-control and focus and discipline in the bedroom, when we're like holding a strong masculine frame, then our partner or the feminine energy then gets to open up and express, and the sex becomes a tremendous an exchange of masculine and feminine energies, which there's a dissolution of the dualities between the two. Good sex should mean coming together. But what happens right now is a lot of people are having sex when they still feel distant. And that distance is because the sex is being approached strictly at a physical level and it's not intimate. So when we bring intimacy into the bedroom, we'll see that our sex is satisfying. It's good sex, meaning it's not just good for the body. Yes, it's way more pleasurable, but it's also good for the heart and the mind. It rejuvenates us, actually. Now, if a man is doing this every day and still ejaculating, it's better than porn and masturbation. But if he's ejaculating every day, he's still going to stifle his testosterone and he still will feel depleted. So, what we teach, and what I teach, is how a man can have non-ejaculatory sex, so he can last as long as he wants in the bedroom. And in non-ejaculatory sex, he circulates and keeps all that energy. So when I have sex, like with my wife, for example, I don't necessarily ejaculate. Well, when we're done, first of all, it's done when she's done, not when I'm done now, right? So the dynamics are really interesting, because as a man, you have to really approach it differently if you're not going to ejaculate, because you have to approach it not really you're not just rushing to the finish line, sort of say, Porn And these images kind of teach us to, as men, to rush to the finish line. It's all about, the ejaculation. And then it's like, yes, that's it. But in tantric sex, in sexual alchemy, which what I teach, you approach sex not in a way of your ejaculation's not even on your mind. What's on your mind is the energy, your heart, her heart, but you're strong. Some guys think, oh, that's kind of oh no, man, I got to approach it like, bang. I said, trust me, your woman is going to love when you're touching her in the right ways and you're coming at it at a very controlled way. Because remember that her ultimate psychology is to feel safe. If you are masturbating on her, if you're being mean to her throughout the week and then all of a sudden you want to just have sex with her, right? If you, as a man, you have to understand that the quality of sex you're going to get is largely dependent on who you are outside of the bedroom. Right? This is what men have to understand. You want more. Yeah, an amen to that. Yeah. This is what men have to understand. Largely, your sex life is determined by your woman, and your woman wants to know who you are outside of the bedroom. Are you providing? Are you protecting? Are you getting your projects done? Are you a man of integrity? Could she rely on you to make good decisions? Could she rely on you to be the steady, grounded individual that she needs you to be? If she can rely on you to do that, then believe me, she's going to open up to you gladly, happily. She'll want to. And that's what guys want. That's why porn plays on that fantasy. Porn plays on, like, what's the classic porn, right? The pizza guy opens up, right? The door. And some woman is just like, oh my God, I'm just so open and ready that, I'll just, the first pizza guy who comes in. Why that psychology, why that's directed towards men, why we should understand, why is that so attractive to a man, is because a man actually desires his woman to be so open, so surrendered to him. And here's what men should understand. A woman will only surrender to you if you have your shit together and she feels safe around you. And when I say your shit together, not just your bank account or your career, but your emotions, your confidence, your beliefs. If she sees you compromising yourself all the time, just swear, she's not going to trust you. She needs to see you stand your ground. You need to know who you are as a man. And then she opens up very nicely. And if someone's like, well, what about like a gay relationship? The feminine energy. It's the feminine energy opens up in the gay relationship. It doesn't matter. It's about the energies. So, yeah.
So, non-ejaculatory sex. How many guys have you met that just said, oh my God, I would love to do that? I can imagine that.
Not very many. So not very many right now.
So how do you sell this?
Through this education, talking to guys. Here's the deal. There's 10 guys who might listen to this, 10 people. Okay, I just had a guy approach me on Instagram, says my wife, I was on a different podcast. My wife watched this podcast. She said, you got to check this guy out. I think it's really interesting. He watched the podcast. He was open enough. He sent me a message. We're connecting. He's going to work with me. This is how it goes. I've worked with a ton of guys. But on the large scale, it's a small amount of guys. But it's the type of guy who understands what I'm saying. It's the type of guy who understands that, first of all, he might have great finances. He might have a great career, but he understands that he's got sexual habits where he's putting himself at risk. His family, his kids, maybe. He's got it's a guy who's into personal development and growth. It's a guy who understands that he's better when he's self-controlled and disciplined. It's a guy who wants to have better sex and be a better husband. Those are the men who come and work with me, and there's more and more of them. And largely, we're going to wake up more men. So right now, not a lot, but we're improving. This movement is growing every single day. I'll give you a stat to prove what I just said is true. Okay?
Yeah.
Semen retention. I've been on this war on porn for about 2 years, and trying to educate men on semen retention and its benefits, both materially and spiritually, for about 2 years so far. So we're a young movement. When I first started researching semen retention on YouTube and Google, there was about 18,000 searches, unique searches for semen retention about 2 years ago. Now there's over 80,000 per month. So 18,000 to 80,000 per month of the word of the key, literally writing in semen retention. I ran in the Canadian 2010 2021 federal election, and the mainstream media started with the post-millennial, which is a kind of a propaganda machine for the Conservative Party here in Canada and conservative thinking. And I'm with a populist party, the People's Party. We're for the people. And what was interesting is they blasted this. They tried to use semen retention to discredit me. So they said PPC, so People's Party of Canada, PPC candidate breathes into his testicles. And Vice News, which is no longer the Vice News that I love and know, who propaganded guys like Wim Hof. Like, I learned about Wim Hof, and if you don't know Wim Hof, check him out because he's doing amazing work. And so Wim, like, they used to promote guys like that. So when I saw Vice News trying to make, it says PPC candidate wants men not to ejaculate. That was it, right? And so they give no context or anything, and they know generally the general population just reads headlines. But here's what happened. So this went viral all around the world. All kinds. I had my aunts calling my mom, "What is Nick into? What is he doing?" Right? Like all kinds. Like, it was crazy, right? And so this went all around the world. And you know what? I got more guys working with me now than ever before. Because here's what happened. The intelligent men, which were right now just a small amount, but we're working on that. But the intelligent men who started reading the articles, they started going to my YouTube channel. They're like, oh no, actually, what this guy's saying makes a ton of sense. And so what it did is that it brought tons of attention to it. And it exploded our movement. And so now we've got members. So I have an organization called the Semen Retention Army that I started. And the Semen Retention Army is an organization of men helping men give up porn and master these practices called sexual alchemy, which is a way to have non-ejaculatory sex, to be better lovers, but more importantly, to be better leaders. We're taking our sexual energy and urges and we're expressing them naturally, and then we're taking all this energy that we're cultivating. Because when you have non-ejaculatory sex, you stimulate your testosterone. It's the opposite of ejaculatory sex. Instead of getting depleted, you get increased. Because afterwards, you have all of that heightened emotion, all that intimacy, all that connection, and it's in you. And now you're vibrant and you're full of energy, and you could take all that energy and focus. And guys will know their minds become clear. When you have great intimate sex, the funny part is you don't even desire sex as much. So you start to become relieved of that constant, need to have sex. Which actually makes you more sexy, by the way, to your partner. So sex comes to you more than you go to it, and you now are free to get those projects done at home, to make more money, to get your health and get your workouts in, and whatever's important to you. If you're an artist, I mean, look, 50 Cent, Kanye West, Sting, all practice this type of thing. Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, David Haye, heavyweight boxing champions, all practice semen retention. Mahatma Gandhi, Nikola Tesla, all practice semen retention. The mystics and yogis all do it. Look at the people, King Solomon, the Chinese emperor, the yellow emperor, they all practice semen retention. So if you look, Steve Jobs is another one. Look, and they're all so if you look at the people who practiced it, you'll see that over time, it's not a quick fix. It's not like, But over time, the constant regulation of your ejaculation fuels your own masculine growth, fuels your own evolution as a man, and pushes you to your own greatness that's within you. It makes you more of you. It brings out all of the qualities that are often lying dormant within you. And that's the secret of this practice. But like you said, you have to be somewhat open-minded to even listen to a guy like me. But if someone gives the conversation the proper openness and proper evaluation, they'll see what I'm saying is the truth.
So can you just very short run us through the steps that someone would have to go through to get to these benefits?
Yes, so the first thing is looking at the negative emotions, maybe sexual traumas or overall vices and addictions. So it doesn't have to be big trauma. I mean, look, if any kind of vice is ultimately stagnating your growth. And, you know, I'm not saying you have to be a purist or become a saint or something like this. But what I am saying is that you got to at least bring in strong regulative values. You have to have your stuff under control. So the first thing that we're going to do is take you through a series of breath work exercises that are going to essentially put your body into a different state where you feel you can hold more energy, your breath is deep, you are coming from a very grounded, secure place, but yet you're heightened, you're enthusiastic, you're full of vital energy. So this is the first thing, is we're going to look at clearing out and looking at creating barriers to your vices. So let me give you an example quickly. Is imagine water flowing down a river and you want it to flow a different way. Well, thoughts are energy flowing through the neural pathways in your brain. So therefore, we need to create a new neural pathway. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build a dam. Like if you wanted to block water, you have to build a dam. So we have to build a dam between you and your vice. And we have to put your vice in its proper places. The way that we do that is by using these ancient practices, 6 healing sounds, pranayama, so that means breath work, is from the yogic tradition. The 6 healing sounds is from the Taoist tradition, where you're using your own breath and energy to start to re-alchemize your body. That's why we call it sexual alchemy. Alchemy means, the ancient tradition was from metal into gold, right? Who could turn metals into precious gold? Well, here, we're turning your raw sexual energy into gas. Think of water that gets heated up and turns into a gas and begins to flow upwards. As you begin to retain your semen for longer periods of time, your semen is going to be transferred into, the Sanskrit word is ojas. It's going to be turned into energy, like gas, and it's going to fuel your body. So the first thing we're going to do is retrain the way the energy flows in your body and open up your energy pathways. And that's mainly through breath work. Then we're going to learn how to work with your energy body. Meaning, when I say your energy body, I'm not talking about some mental concoction. I'm talking about a tangible feeling of your own energy flowing through your body and getting in touch with that very subtle energy that's in your body. And like if you're familiar with acupuncture or tapping, these type of practices are meant to open up the nadis or the energy centers within the body. The type of movements and meditations that I show you will open up your energy body, and then you learn to retain your semen for long periods of time and cultivate energy, sexual energy. One of the challenges that men are having is low libido. Some guys have high libido. Some guys have low libido. If you're a guy who has low libido, or you find that you don't really have a lot of sexual urge or drive, or aren't getting turned on as easily, then these practices are actually going to help you cultivate high levels of sexual energy. Because when you are having non-ejaculatory sex, or you're holding your semen for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days at a time, you're developing a massive amounts of sexual energy. And when you learn to control that energy, that's tremendous amounts of fuel that you can now use to pour into your work, into your art. And sexual energy has all the qualities of creativity. Sexual energy is designed to create a baby on the physical level, but it also injects the energetic qualities, creativity, imagination. Napoleon Hill talks about how it increases the imagination and our literal vibration. And when our vibration increases, we're not as easily controlled. We're healthier. We're motivated. We want to get things done. And this makes us, what I call a powerhouse man, right? You become a powerhouse both in and outside the bedroom. You're on task, you're on point, you're on mission, you're fulfilled. This makes you attractive to your partner, or if you're single and you're, looking for a relationship, you're able to connect with people in a deeper way because you're not caught up in your own stuff. You're about helping others now. And this is a very fulfilling type of way of living. And this is the mindset that makes a man extremely healthy and attractive and ultimately, like I said, what I call a powerhouse man.
So what's the minimum length of time that you would have to keep on to swimmers to notice any benefit from this?
Yeah. So it takes about 7 to 10 days for a man's body to reabsorb his semen. So what happens is the body's always producing semen. So that's why guys think it's an unlimited amount, right? They think, but here's the thing. It takes a lot of energy to produce that semen. And as you get older, like everything, things will slow down a little bit. We can't deny that aspect. So semen production will also slow down. So let's say you have a limited amount of ejaculations. The more you limit your ejaculation, the more youthful and vibrant you're going to stay, because that's your vital life force and energy. Now, after about 7 to 10 days of retaining, the body reabsorbs that semen because it's efficient, it's not going to waste it, and it recirculates all the proteins, enzymes, and nutrients that are found in the semen. It circulates it throughout the body, repairing cells. This is where men have reported thicker hair, brighter eyes, deeper voice. Now, here's something that we should all understand about ourselves. Our body and our mind are one thing. They're not two separate things. So, as our semen is reabsorbed in the body, our testosterone is stimulated because nature is basically saying, hey man, you're not getting laid. You're not ejaculating. And you should be like, a strong man out there spreading your seed, right? This is what nature, from a physical perspective, is asking of you. And so it stimulates your testosterone to stimulate your masculinity so that you develop more testosterone, more masculine qualities. This is where men report, my workouts are stronger. I'm losing body fat. My physique is filling out. My voice is getting deeper. And now my psychology is being influenced by that. I'm not interested so much in fake sex. I want real sex. I'm not interested in having maybe lots of friends. I'm interested in having quality of friends. I want quality over quantity because I'm now becoming a more quality individual in my literal body and mind. And inside of the trainings that I give men, so I've got 2 programs. One's called the Powerhouse Man Training, which is a one-on-one training with me, and the other one is the Semen Retention Army, which is done in groups with men, which is a full kind of a year-long training program. And so, but both, it doesn't matter which one, whichever training program a man works in, we practice semen retention plus the added skills of communication and leadership, because once we develop leadership skills with that, we then take that energy and develop a strong mindset. Semen retention, I'll just lastly say, and then I'll be quiet, I promise. Semen retention also is the best way for a man to develop his willpower. Because you are literally going against your desire to ejaculate, you are developing tremendous amounts of willpower. And it's this willpower that it's like muscle. When you develop a muscle and you just have a stronger bicep, maybe you did it to look good and that was your motivation, but now you're just a stronger guy. So when, your neighbor says, can you help me lift that couch? You're more valuable, right? You could just lift that couch. You're more attractive because your physique is built out, right? Like there's so many other benefits that come with it. So here's what happens when you practice semen retention, because you're literally dealing with the root basic motivator, you're then also developing a very strong mindset. So if you're a meditator, your meditations become better, because your mind is more disciplined and focused. If you're a businessman, all of a sudden you're sharper, you're more focused, you're making those extra sales calls, you're more enthusiastic, so your energy is more contagious, you're attracting more people to your brand, your sales are going up. If you're in a relationship, you're not depleting your energy or messing with your dopamine on fake screen-based sex or fake sex. Or your Instagram girls, you're coming home to your wife or to your partner and you're creating real experiences, bringing back real romance and connection and intimacy. It heightens your ability to focus yourself into the world. And so that's why when men practice this as a foundational practice, all aspects of their life get better.
Yeah, so just out of curiosity, you said it takes about 7 to 10 days, and then is that kind of like the peak of your testosterone as well? And if you, let's say, go 30 days, would that have a detrimental effect? Would the testosterone start going down at some point, or how does that work?
Yeah, so as far as I understand, there's no detriment to retaining for longer periods of time. I for instance, myself, I like average one every 30 to 90 days.
Wow. And
here's what happens when you go for longer periods of time. While your testosterone still continues to grow, but it won't have that spike, let's say. So there's a spike at the 7 to 14 days. And a lot of guys, that's where they feel that motivation, right? They're like, oh, yeah, I could conquer the world. It's because they're feeling that masculine energy. So they want to conquer, they want to pursue and provide, protect. That's, the motivation part. What happens is as you hold it for longer periods of time, that settles and it becomes your natural default. So you're actually just operating at a higher level, but it's normalized to you.
Yeah.
You just have more energy, less sleep, you need less food, all these type of things. So you're more efficient in your body. So the longer you hold, the more your willpower, and you can cultivate energy, especially if you're having non-ejaculatory sex, then you could cultivate that energy. But even if you're not having any sex or doing any sexual activity, that energy is still building because your body's still producing semen. But now it doesn't need to dedicate as much energy to producing semen because it has an excess. So over 30 days, 60 days, you start to have more than what's required. And so, as in the Bible it says, and then your cuppeth overfloweth type of deal, meaning that you actually are energetically abundant, right? Yeah. So you can work longer if you want, but you do it in a relaxed way. You just have energy, so you don't need to sleep as much. You're not wasting time. And so in this sense, this refinement of energy becomes the long-term benefit of holding for longer periods of time. Now, when I work with guys, we do a scale where we start at, depending, like if a guy's ejaculating every day, we're not going to say go 30 days without ejaculating. That would be like torture for the dude, right? So what we'll probably do is set a goal of like, let's go once a week. Or at the beginning, we might not even change anything, but we just add the practice of sexual alchemy, which naturally begins to transmute his energy. So even if a guy doesn't say, like, it's not as much as not about quitting, but it's about adding these practices and lifestyle of working with your sexual energy consciously. Right. And then we teach guys how to masturbate but not ejaculate so they can actually cultivate that energy within themselves. We teach how to change your relationship with sex through masturbation, and then eventually into the bedroom. And again, it's a process. It's a retraining. That's why guys inside the semen retention army, they work with me, and we have a whole organization. We've got guys running different groups and such, and the training program lasts a year. It takes you only about 6 weeks to learn the practices, but it takes a year of constant training. But here's the beauty of this program and this type of thing, is that once you've done it, and you know the practices, and you've got a certain foundation, you don't need us anymore. This is not something I don't want guys having lifetime memberships in the army. It's a 1 year, come transform your life, get your shit together, really level up, and then you'll be operating at a new level. You'll never drop once you've got a certain amount of ojas. Ojas is aura, a certain amount of inner strength and power.
So, in your experience from yourself or the guys that you're working with, what's the biggest revelation that people get when they do this work?
Yeah, thank you. The biggest revelation that people get is the amount of spiritual connection that they feel. Even if a guy is totally not spiritual and he begins to do semen retention, naturally he will become more conscious. So if the word spiritual kind of freaks you out for whatever reason, then just the word conscious, aware. The amount of self-awareness that you develop through this practice is tremendous, because again, I'll say it again, it is your most basic motivator and influencer. So if you can become so aware of the thing that literally drives you to wake up and get up in the morning, right? There's a few things that drive us from a total physical perspective. The first thing is to eat. The second thing is to have sex. Then we want to sleep. And then we defend. We'll defend. Defending is, for a lot of guys, defending is having a job and paying the bills and making sure there's a household, right? We're comfort. But as human beings, now every species on the planet does this. Animals, everybody's doing those 4 activities. So we want to master those activities, become really good at them, so that we could do other activities. And that's the awareness. All of a sudden you start to recognize, wow, once I've got a certain level of self-control or self-mastery and discipline over my own body and mind, I can create. I can connect. I can attract, I can think of something and then actually learn the skills to do it and apply it and create something. I can go above and beyond just getting by and surviving, but I was designed for so much more. I'm designed, that's the biggest realization guys have. Wow, I'm truly designed for so much more than surviving or being caught by by vice or by limiting myself and my own contentment. I can continue to always evolve and expand and have adventure and excitement, and you become a magician in your own life, what I call a sexual alchemist, right? You alchemize your life from the inside out. You have tremendous amounts of personal power, and that's what guys realize the most. Wow, I am a powerful dude, as long as I keep my power where it's meant to be kept, which is in me, so that I can drive this vehicle, my body, and do good things in this world.
That's awesome. So how would I, as a woman, if I'm watching this and I want to suggest to my partner that maybe he shouldn't be playing so much with himself and watch fake sex and whatnot. So just because I want to create more intimacy between us. So when I say it like that to you right now, it sounds more like I'm deflecting and I'm blaming him for the lack of intimacy in our relationship. Right. So how would you recommend that someone go about things? How do you get through to someone if you want to suggest something like that?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a little bit of sales skills, right? So the number one rule in sales is like, what's in it for me, right? So what's in it for the man? Yeah, what's in it for the man, right? Like if you're a woman and you're thinking, okay, I want to bring this up with my husband, but how do I do this, or with my boyfriend or my partner? Then I would say the proper approach is just being quite honest and vulnerable and just saying, hey, I was watching and listening or, to this podcast, and there was an incredible topic about sex and the energies of sex and how it works. And he was talking about having better sex and everything. And I would really, would you be open to listening to it with me? And so that we can, hear what he has to say together. I would love, for you to listen to it with me. And in that sense, you can approach it as more like, hey, this is something that I'd like us to do together, or I'd like us to explore. And then when he hears the information, then he himself can evaluate whether, he believes it in or not. I wouldn't force it upon him, but I would be delivering it to him in a very kind way. Now, here's the warning. Men's egos are very fragile. We're very fragile beings. We put on this hard exterior, but we're not, right? Telling us any way, shape, or form that our sexual performance is less than par is a difficult conversation. However, you should essentially have that conversation, because it's not doing any favor to keep it a secret, and it's not doing him any favor truly. So sometimes the truth is unpalatable, meaning it's not like it doesn't taste very good at the beginning, but it sets you free. So don't be afraid of the hard work. You do the hard work and the uncomfortable work. Trust me, that period will be quickly over. And then you get to the good stuff, which is great sex, great intimacy, romance in your relationship, all the good things that we love about relationship. It's there. It's all available for us, but we have to create it consciously. If not, we can get lazy in our relationships. So that's it. I would just approach it like that. I saw this great podcast, or I was listening to this awesome podcast. He talked about having better sex. He has some really interesting perspectives about sex. I found it fascinating. Would you be willing to listen to this together? And same thing, if you're a man and you want to have a discussion, you're interested in this topic, but you're thinking, my wife is going to think I'm off my rocker if I tell her I don't want to come. Right? Right? So same thing, you say the same. Yeah. What are you talking about? Right? Because that's a conversation that's legit. And I've helped many men navigate the conversation. It's very simple, and women love the practice once, but there is an initial shock. There is an initial, also sometimes women feel like they're not doing their job. Like, well, I didn't satisfy him, right? Like he couldn't, right? And so there's a conversation that needs to be had there. But again, be very open. Hey, I was listening to this podcast. It was extremely interesting. I think it's something so women are generally a lot more open. If you say to your woman, like, look, this is something I think I could use. Most women are like, yeah, please go ahead and do it, right? Like, there's not much resistance on that part. It's normally our own insecurity about bringing the subject up. But again, do the vulnerable work, do the hard work, and reach out to connect with me. I'm happy to guide you through it. Look, I'm helping guys. Yes, it is my business. And like any man, I want to be successful and have a successful organization. But the basis of this business is we started it to help guys, and that's what we're doing. So reach out and connect, and there's definitely some area or space that we can support you in.
Awesome. So any final piece of advice for the men watching this?
Yeah, open up to the conversation. If this is something that you've heard of before and you've thought about it and it's coming back into your world, then take that as a sign to move forward and connect and do something to take yourself to the next level. If this is a topic that you're hearing for the first time, then, and you want to connect, I invite you to as well. But at the same time, if you're thinking, well, I'd like to learn more, I'd like to get more information, then, I'm on YouTube, I'm on social media, I'm very active, connecting, very available. So, connect on one of the platforms, get informed, let the information kind of dwell over the next few weeks, and then reach out. Take the next step. Be okay. Here's your first lesson for better sex, better intimacy, better romance, better life, relationship. Curiosity is a wonderful thing. If you are curious enough to say, well, maybe I give it a shot and see if this actually makes a difference, allow that curiosity to drive you, and you could discover a lot of cool things that are available to you that, a skeptical mind or a mind that isn't willing. I'm not saying don't be skeptical if you're skeptical. If that's, I can understand why I know how crazy I sound to the most people, right? I accept that. That's fine. But I know that there are guys who are intelligent enough to hear what I'm saying. And if you're just curious enough to be like, this could possibly be the solution that I was looking for to take myself, my relationship, get that excitement back, get my, health to the next level, get my life to the next level, then, follow that curiosity.
Yeah, and I think, you don't know me, but a lot of people that are following me, they know that I've been helping people quit sugar and processed foods. And there are so many parallels between the subjects, and it's all about the dopamine and how to rewire your brain and create new pathways, etc. And it's all the same thing. All addictions are kind of rooted in the same system. So when you get control of your eating, for example, if you want to quit sugar, then you have that advantage, and if you've done that work, you can just apply it to exactly what you've been talking about. And it's the same thing, it's just different topic. So I think that's it's great to hear you talking about it, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And there is kind of, I always say, like, the beginning is always going to be super hard. It's going to feel unnatural, it's going to be hell, and then you just have to wade through the river of misery, and then when you're out on the other side, it's just like relief, and everything is so easy. You might fall back, but you know exactly what to do then. So
and that's why the support groups are so important, like having that solid support group, right? That's why we built the army, right? It's like, because we know you have those tough first month or two. It's going to be the toughest. And when you've got a bunch of, people around you cheering you on, you're seeing other people be successful at it. You're vibing off of their successes and wins. It becomes so much easier. And I think facing any vice, addiction, or trying to get to the next level on your own, I think it's just like, why go at it on your own when it's so much easier to bank on the strength of others?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I would recommend that people are heading over to your YouTube channel as well, because I saw that you have a bunch of videos there that might relate to different people. So just go and check it out. We'll put all the links up in the description. Any final words?
I just want to thank you so much for all the work you're doing. I mean, what you're doing as far as helping people with sugar addictions and processed foods, that's fantastic. I feel like we're totally in the same fight, different angles, but it's ultimately freeing people. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to chat and talk to your audience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your knowledge and all the advice that you've been given.